the president of the Institute for the Fiduciary Standard. Today's panel is the 6th of 10 panels we have for Fiduciary September. For those of you who may not quite know, Fiduciary September is the largest annual conversation among planners, advisors, and experts about the importance of fiduciary duties, principles, and practices. So today we have a little bit of a unique subject in that in some regards it's not perceived to be at the center of fiduciary importance, but part of the reason for having it is to change that a little bit. And I want to say at the outset two things about the Institute. The Institute's interest in this topic is not because we've taken a position, because we have not taken a position. Our interest in the topic regards the discussion that is going on and the importance in that discussion that I've heard from so many of you regarding transparency and clarity of fees and services. So what our interest here is to have a civil, constructive discussion / debate that informs, and which is also, I'll just say that is, I focus on this because it is so rare in our industry today, in my view. And this is why I give a call out to Sarah G for her podcast last week on the CFP board, because particularly at the end of that discussion, we had something that is in my view rare. We had two individuals from opposing sides discuss back and forth in a way that was actually informative. And this may sound elementary, this may sound basic, but I think in the world that we work, it's far too rare. So, Jeff, I've got high hopes for what you're going to be able to do with this program today, and so I will hand it off to you and get out of your way. Jeff Benjamin.
Thanks a lot, Canute. Set the bar kind of high. You want it to be civil and informative, so we're going to have to go deep on this one. We got a great panel here today of financial advisors that have distinctly different fee models, and we're going to talk about all of those. As Canute said, I don't think he is taking a side on which fee model he prefers or which one is the best. I don't know if there are any good ones. If you follow me at all or anything that I do, you know that fees are a pet project of mine. I'm writing about them all the time because I think there's always room for improvement. We have with us today Adam Cross, Alex Offerman, and Cody Garrett. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves because I want you to hear them and their story on how they set their fees and why. We're going to start with you, Adam.
Thank you, Jeff. Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Cross. I am a 12-year industry veteran, just so happen to be a millennial also. My experience comes from the dual registration world. So spent the last 10 years basically competing with commissions versus AUM fees. And during the COVID pandemic, I actually started my own practice, amcwealth.com. Whenever I was basically, getting all the filings done, the question came up, like, how do I, want to serve people in what capacity? And it was about that time where I kind of put on my millennial hat and then my retired client hat at the same time. And I said, okay, maybe rather than just doing AUM business, I also have alternative options for maybe people who may not typically qualify to do business in that capacity. So my firm, we still do AUM. I think I'm one of the only people on the panel that still offers that. But that's really designed for people who have a desire or need for that type of service. Then my other services include a flat retainer. So that would be for clients who don't want investment management, but want ongoing advice. And then I have hourly project-based, which is, for one-time, one-off situations, essentially. So our fees are really based on the scope of services we're providing. ranging anything from like a one-time project all the way up to, you know, full-on investment management, family office support on the high end. So yeah, been in business about 2 years. I've got a team of 7 advisors, all using the same service lineup and model, and things have been going very well for us. And I'm very glad to be a part of the panel.
Thank you. Alex Offerman.
You got it. Yeah. So good afternoon. My name is Alex Offerman. I'm a financial planner over at Model Wealth. We're an hourly based financial planning firm just outside of Chicago, about 30 minutes west in Naperville, Illinois. However, we are very much virtual. We have clients that are all over the country that seek out an hourly based financial planner or that type of work. Like I said, we primarily focus on hourly based planning, which allows us to work with clients from all ends of the spectrum, from clients that are buried in debt, just trying to find financial independence, all the way to clients that have $100 million of net worth, just trying to figure out the best way to gift during their lifetime and the most efficient way to do so. We operate as a team environment over here. I'm one of 3 advisors that look at each project as a case study as like a university course, and we tackle each project, whether it's just figuring out when Social Security needs to be claimed or a full financial engagement. We do that all as a team, and it's all based upon the hours of work that we put into that project.
Okay. And Cody Garrett.
Hey there, so I'm Cody Garrett. I joined the industry. I was a career changer from professional music, where I had a 10-year career as a keyboardist and music director. I joined the industry. My first job was an independent RIA. Used like the 1% AUM model. I received a phone call from a prospective client who said he said, I've interviewed over a dozen fee-only CFP financial planners, and none of them will provide financial planning to me without the expectation to manage my money. So literally within that week, I received 4 to 5 of those types of calls and determined, I got to a point where I was receiving about 4 to 5 prospective clients per week wanting that very thing, which is just, I want comprehensive financial planning, but I have the time, the temperament, and the talent to manage my own trades at Fidelity or Vanguard or wherever else. So I launched Measure Twice Financial last year. So as an advice-only financial planner, I provide comprehensive financial planning to do-it-yourself DIY investors on the path to early retirement. So people who want to be work optional before 60, and they want to retire early within the next 5 years. Every client pays the same flat fee for the same service and process. 3 meetings over 3 months for $6,400. And as of this January, the demand for this service has exceeded my supply. I've referred away about 20 clients per week, starting at the beginning of this year. So not only flat fee, but also I only provide project-based financial planning. So I don't do any ongoing subscriptions or hourly, just 3 months, 3 meetings for a flat fee.
Okay. I want to first go with the non-AUM gentleman on the panel here, because we know that upwards of 90% of independent financial advisors use some form of asset-based pricing. So Alex, why not AUM?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we always here at Model Wealth, we focus very little energy on what other firms charge individuals and how they go about it. We focus very little of our time on there. However, on our end, we chose hourly based financial planning because it's the least conflicted model out there. And of course, there's an inherent conflict of interest, regardless of whether it's an hourly based fee or an AUM percentage based fee, because there's an exchange of a fee with that client. So there's always going to be an inherent conflict of interest there. We understand that, and we try to disclose that inherent conflict of interest with the client at that first meeting. But we chose hourly based planning just for the fact that it is the least conflict interest. Studies have shown that individuals either get lower returns with an advisor on staff as managing their investments on a full-time basis. It's usually more taxes that are owed, and it brings up, again, more conflicts of interest. For example, rolling over an employer-sponsored plan into a traditional IRA, which negates some tax planning abilities for high-income earners. So that's the reason why our firm decided to move forward with changing or going with hourly-based financial planning rather than a percentage of assets. We want to make sure that we are open to everyone. As long as they can pay the hourly fee, then we don't care whether you have $100 million of assets or you're in debt by $250,000. It doesn't matter to us. We're just trying to make sure that we are doing the best for that client, and they understand that the fee that they pay us for.
And to be clear, you do manage portfolios, right, Alex?
Yeah, that's a very good point too. Yeah, so we do have another side business that is not our primary focus, and you may say, well, how's that not your primary focus? We focus out on hourly based planning, but there are circumstances that we get ourselves into where maybe it was the client, or most of the time it's another advisor, that makes the portfolio way too complicated, and it's way too hard for that individual to go and manage that on their own. For example, if they have maturing securities, we have a specific instance where we had a client that came to us from a large brokerage firm that had about $17 million of investments, and every time he got a new payout, they put him in a new investment. So it was this funny situation where where he had a $280,000 portfolio, consisted of 40 individual municipal bonds for $7,000 each. That just mimicked, and they were charging just under 1% for that management of that portfolio. That mimicked the Vanguard Intermediate Term Taxes and Bond Fund at the end of the day. So long story short, we do have a side of our business that we charge a flat subscription model for, and that's usually as a result of it being too complicated from from themselves or from another advisor.
Okay, Cody, why are you? I know you're advice only, so you're not even managing assets. So obviously you would have a hard time doing an AUM fee model. But why are you kind of against the grain of the rest of the industry this way?
So I kind of similar to Alex. I think I would say we each serve different people differently, which is one of the beautiful things about the industry. And thankfully, we're not like forced to be under one compensation model. With that said, I had to define before you can define your compensation model, you have to say, who am I serving and how am I serving? So when I discovered I was going to serve DIY investors and I was going to serve them, they weren't the types of DIY investors that need like ongoing hand-holding. They don't really want the gym memberships. If they're not going to the gym every month, they just want to pay for when they need advice. That just kind of naturally filtered down to being advice only and only offering project-based planning. With that said, I've worked in the AUM model before, but I actually tweeted yesterday that I also believe that fees so I guess backing up a little bit, to give advice in someone's best interest, you have to first understand their interest. So to me, that means I believe that financial planning as a service, has to, precede any type of implementation, whether it's investment management or, insurance sales, otherwise. But I just said that I believe that fees for financial planning advice should not be influenced by the implementation of any of those recommendations. So I know as fiduciaries, there's this kind of boundary between like disclosing conflicts of interest and avoiding conflicts of interest. But I believe that if the fees for a client are increased or reduced due to any implementation of the advisor's advice, then those recommendations are therefore conflicting and in some way. So if let's say that I started managing investments, I would manage it as a flat fee. I would charge I would charge separately for financial planning and separately for investment management, but still for a flat fee on both sides.
Okay. And Adam, you do AUM hourly and I think flat retainer. Are you moving in one direction or the other as far as your fee model goes?
So what's interesting, 100% of our clients have opted for either AUM, they have a desire or need to have their account with us, and for that level of oversight. The other people who don't have a need or desire for that, it's all been one-time projects where we go on an hourly basis. So I would say we're probably moving in the direction of project-based on one side and then AUM on the other. Obviously, clearly distincting or separating the services, kind of like Cody said, because I actually do believe in that as well, because there's a lot of investment management going on right now without financial planning that's still, clients are paying an AUM fee. And then we have like really in-depth, good quality financial planning on the other side, which I think helps expand the industry as well. So I think if I were to guess where we would be in 10 years, it would be like the full separation, planning on an hourly project basis, and then investment management still on a % of AUM basis, albeit I could sense some compression coming in on that side. If I had to guess where we would be. But at the end of the day, we leave it up to every client to tell us what they have a desire or need for. And then based on what they say, that's what we kind of start with every situation.
Okay. I'm going to assume that each of you feel like you're acting in the best interest of your clients or acting as a fiduciary. Do you think that your fee model, and I'm sticking with you here, Adam, and we'll go around the horn. Do you think that your fee model, the way you charge and what you charge, affects your ability to be a fiduciary?
Absolutely. By not limiting myself and having a corresponding service based on needs and the scope of engagement, you essentially eliminate all of the conflicts of interest when you simply ask the client, like how frequently they want to work with us, what's the scope of the relationship, and then having an appropriately priced option based on their responses. I think a lot of conflicts do get eliminated when we conduct business that way, because instead of me kind of pushing one, all I have to do is ask one or two questions and then map the client to the appropriate service option. So absolutely.
Well, would you?
I don't lose any sleep at night based on our fee model.
Would you say that somebody who is charging just an asset-based fee is not acting as a fiduciary?
I wouldn't say that. I think by limiting oneself, it kind of puts the emphasis on what you're limiting yourself on. So there's that conflict, I would say. But I've also seen people turn away business too, or refer it out. So I think it's a total case by case situation. But I shouldn't say against limiting oneself, but imagine if you just did hourly work. All of a sudden, like, hourly is the best thing since sliced bread, right? If you only do AUM business, AUM's the best thing since sliced bread. But if you aren't a one-trick pony, you can kind of, eliminate those personal biases.
Okay, but your fee model can be your set because that's the business model that you've opted for, like Cody's advice only. He's not managing anybody's assets, so that model works for him. But what I'm kind of asking all of you guys is, can you be a fiduciary regardless of your fee model? Alex?
Can you ask that question again, Jeff, or can you rephrase that question?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back to my original question that I asked Adam. Do you feel like your fee model allows you to act as a fiduciary? Or does it, I'm assuming, like I said, like I prefaced this, I got to assume all of you feel like or believe you're acting in the best interest of your clients and that you are acting as a fiduciary, but you all have different fee models. Can you all be fiduciaries with different fee models? But I want you to defend your fee model.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam just said that it's a one-trick pony being an hourly planner when not having the spectrum of AUM fees or the percentage of assets. And I would actually counter that point by saying that it's actually, you're opening yourself up to more conflicts of interest by having all those fee models that are out there, in my opinion. Just because, yes, you may be able to drive the client to say, hey, it's better if we manage your assets or have your assets here, but there's an inherent conflict of interest saying, well, we have a fee schedule for that that's not associated with the amount of work that could be associated with that dollar amount. So I think that personally, I think the hourly is the least conflicted model, and you can act as a fiduciary. And I think you can act as a fiduciary in all models, regardless whether it's AUM, flat fee, or whatever, as long as the fee is disclosed in both a percentage and a dollar amount to that client. That's our big component here, is that most clients, I would say, don't really realize what a percent of their wealth is. They understand it. They say, oh yeah, it's 1%. It's not that much. But when it's transposed to a dollar amount that they have to pay, it's a little bit different than the actual percentage of wealth that they have there. So again, I think everyone that acts, that has an AUM under management, whatever, should act, or that they have the ability to act as a fiduciary. There's just different models out there that we believe that hourly is the least conflict of interest out there.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about how your fees are disclosed and transparency in a second, but first I want to have Cody defend his status as a fiduciary with his advice only model.
Yeah, I think in a way, by being kind of a one-trick pony of only doing it one way, it's kind of becoming it's kind of like a no-trick pony, right? In terms of not tricking the client. The big thing here is that my compensation is not affected by my recommendations and how they're implemented. So, so first of all, in terms of fiduciary, I kind of like to think in two buckets here: fiduciary and letter, and fiduciary and spirit. I know it can get really convoluted, but I think that AUM certainly falls within a fiduciary and letter, in terms of like regulatory standard. But I believe that, that in a way, being AUM or any compensation model, you have to disclose conflicts of interest. But I do believe that the model that I provide actually eliminates a lot of those conflicts. And what I mean by that is, if I were to manage investments or have the option to for an additional fee, right, then guess what my recommendation for investments would be, right? I know a lot of AUM advisors who provide project-based planning as a separate service, but I've actually experienced this with clients I've worked with. They work with an advisor who offered them project-based planning, but when they got to the recommendation for what to do with their investments, the recommendation is, we recommend that we manage your investments for you, right? So I think that is a huge conflict of interest, even to have multiple. That's one example of having multiple offerings. I know Adam seems to do it the best way. He asks the client like up front, like, what are you actually looking for? And then filters them to the appropriate. But I think the majority, again, I don't know too many, but of what I've seen when they're offered, I see the product usually leads the plan. We hear this in the kind of the broker dealer insurance world, but I believe that investment management is just as much of a product as an insurance policy. And in terms of it's only one part of the planning process, which is implementation. So I really believe that by doing financial planning and providing recommendations, clients can implement those their own well-informed decisions, whether they continue to manage their own investments. I can help them find a different advisor if they want to delegate their investments. But we talk a lot about financial planning as being kind of the quarterback of their professional ecosystem. And as an advice-only planner, like since I only provide financial advice, I can actually guide them to somebody like Adam or Alex for those services without conflicts, because I won't get paid more or less based on how they implement those decisions.
Okay, Cody, how do you disclose your fees once you have a client? Not saying these are my fees going into the relationship, but on a regular basis, how do you disclose and how do you bill or collect those fees?
Yeah, so the big point there is that my service, process, and fee are all on the website transparently before a prospective client even knows that I exist, or even before I know they exist. So if you go to my website and look for, work with Cody, it says 3-month, 3-meeting comprehensive financial planning process for $6,400. If you go through that process, I want to re-engage in the future for another 3-month process. It's 75% of that cost, $4,800. And I've actually never had a conversation about fees in my introductory call with clients, because they already understand the service, process, and fee before they even show up. I've actually had 100% follow through from first meeting to becoming a client because of that level of transparency. And I think the simplicity, the more simple I can be about service, process, and fee, the more time I can spend actually learning about their family and their unique financial planning objectives, rather than focusing on the implementation.
This is the thing I always hear about AUM, is the simplicity of it, because everybody can understand what 1% is, if that's the number, even if you don't really feel comfortable when you see 1% of your portfolio being deducted. My theory is that the AUM model is so comfortable for financial advisors because it can be deducted kind of silently, and you don't have to go to your client every quarter and say, hey, you owe me this much money. Adam, how do you collect and kind of display your fees to your clients, to your current clients?
Yeah, so same thing as Cody said, all of our fees are attached to the scope of the service on our website. So if you go to amcwealth.com right now, it'll say one-time service, $200 an hour, ongoing advice, X amount a quarter, percent of assets under management, 1% annually. We also have hypotheticals posted all over our website about, how our AUM fees tier. So if your balance is larger, here's what the total dollar amount will result in. So that's all cooked in there. And then obviously, you know, whenever we do like annual reviews and with all of our investment management clients, fees are something that we always kind of, you know, talk about. But to your point, like how we're communicating it, quarterly invoicing, monthly statements. So everything does go out that way. It's very difficult for us to call every time there's a fee deducted because we're monthly to level out some of that volatility. But yeah, we do quarterly invoicing and then monthly statements, and then the hypotheticals and calculators on our website for AUM in particular. So yeah, and one more thing to your question earlier. Yes, I think anybody can be a fiduciary, even insurance agents and commissionable people. It's all about disclosing the fees.
Okay, I'm going to ask Alex the same question on his fees and disclosure, but I also want to, after he responds, I want to open it up to any of the journalists, the reporters on the call, if they want to ask any questions. So get your questions ready, folks. Alex, how do you disclose and collect your fees?
Yeah, you got it. So we are hourly based, so everything is charged. We charge $300 an hour here. When you hear about hourly billing, you may correspond that with attorneys or things like that. But every meeting that we have with the client, the initial meeting, we may base we base it upon a project. So for example, everyone else that you deal with, a painter, a landscaper, if I had a construction, if I need to put a front porch in my house and I called someone and they came out and said, hey, we'll just charge you by the hour, we'll tell you how much the product costs at the end of the project, I will never engage in that service. It's just not. But that when they come back to a quote or come back with a quote, that is based upon a certain number of hours that they expect to put inside of that project. And that's how we bill here at Model Wealth. So yes, it's hourly based, but we quote a project up front for that client that's based upon the amount of hours that we believe is going to be taken for that project. And we have a pretty good idea over the last 5 years or so of doing the hourly based planning just by itself of how long a project is going to take for a particular client. If it's more complex, then we charge maybe 18 hours for that project or $5,400, and we quote it up front, and that's all the client is responsible for. They sign the agreement saying, hey, this is the amount of work that we will do in exchange for said fee, and they are well aware of it. On the ongoing side of things, for the individuals that use the flat fee wealth management side, that is disclosed in every single meeting with us because we are happy to discuss our flat fee wealth management. That hourly on the flat fee wealth management side of things, that average client is about $3 to $5 million. So you can always turn that into a percentage of assets, which is negligible in the grand scheme of things. So we are very happy to disclose and talk about our fees with majority of all of our clients, and also our hourly clients understand what they're paying up front as well.
Okay, are there any journalists on the call that would like to ask a question to the panel? No? Come on. All right. I want to ask you guys, are you seeing any pressure on fees? This is an industry, the wealth management industry at large. We've seen ETFs go down to basis points. We've seen trading costs go down to zero for the most part. But I've always been kind of surprised and impressed that the people directly in contact with the ones actually paying the fees are not feeling, they say at least they're not seeing any pressure on fees. Are any of you guys seeing that? Is that just an awkward conversation for clients to say, hey, Cody, I really like what you're doing for me, but could you do it for a little less money at all?
Well, Jeff, one thing that's important in terms of my model is I only serve DIY investors who the majority of them are very fee conscious. I specifically serve the anti-advisor community. It was hard to even gain trust within that community. Now that I can actually educate them about the power of financial planning and what are the benefits, right, and the things to look out for when working with an advisor. But yeah, there's absolutely fee pressure. Some people tell me like, hey, like even though you charge a flat fee, like $6,400 is a lot of money, right? Like that's not cheaper than another model. But when you think about who and how I serve, since I'm working with people who want to retire within 5 years, the majority of them, when they do have their investments currently managed, they're paying over $30,000 a year. for just investment management, usually not getting the, I mean, they came to me for planning, so they, apparently weren't getting it, where they were working under an AUM model. And not that that's specific to AUM, but yeah, a lot of kind of advice only in a way. Some of the kind of the outcomes of our financial planning is actually helping, kind of empowering DIY investors to kind of in a harsh way, like fire their investment manager. They're becoming a lot more aware of not just the fees they're paying advisors, but also the fees they're paying on their investments within those portfolios. The majority of my clients use low-cost passive index funds. They believe that complexity is job security in terms of, you don't need 99 mutual funds to be diversified, and you can also literally buy all your investments on your phone now. So they want to pay for advice and not pay for the things that they can do themselves, and that means also paying the right fees in the right places.
Alex, are you seeing any pressure on fees?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback right off of Cody's answer here and just say we do not on our end. There's not like clients that come and haggle us saying, can you do $250 an hour? And I think that's because we are widely disclosed our fees on our website, which weeds out some individuals before they even get to us. If they say, hey, that's too expensive for us, they don't even get to our front door or get to our inbox to discuss it because it's laid out right on our website of what we charge. But we do hear a lot of individuals do come to us to try to figure out what they are paying to their advisor because they don't know at the end of the day. And individuals or advisors may say, well, they should know, they understand what they're paying. Yeah, but it's a consumer at the end of the day. They don't have time to figure out, well, I'm getting charged 1% here. I just got sold the life insurance policy here. I have this. I don't know what I'm paying. I don't know how I'm paying, why I'm paying. And I think that's a big thing here of just fee disclosure, fee transparency at the end of the day will do very good for our industry and put us light years ahead. But we have a lot of clients that come to us to try to figure out how much they're paying, why they are paying it, and where they're paying it from. And then we also have clients that, again, that don't come to that just doesn't ultimately reach our inbox because they go to our website and they see our fee, and if it's out of their price range, they don't engage.
That's a good point. I mean, the disclosure thing, I get blowback all the time when I write about this from advisors saying our fees are disclosed, but it's how well are they disclosed? Just because they're documented somewhere for somebody to find, I don't know. I see advisors calling themselves fiduciaries, and then you have to look through their client statements to find what the fee is, and then you have to do some math to figure out what they're paying. I don't know. I guess you could feel comfortable with that. Adam, what are you seeing as far as, I mean, you're in partially AUM. Do you have kind of breakpoints for your clients when they get to a certain asset level? I mean, do you feel any? That would seem the fee model most susceptible to kind of flexibility and maybe even some pressure.
So interestingly, Jeff, when I first started the company, I had a supplemental robo advisor. So for clients who maybe didn't want to work with me directly, but still wanted like some light service involving their investment management account, I actually had a discounted option at 50 basis points to compete directly with the robo advisors. Essentially, client goes on, completes a questionnaire, it spits out, it's a model portfolio essentially. But I ran into regulatory hurdles for having that. So having two separate, AUM models. But I am well aware of the technology out there that can, portfolio construction is very easily commoditized, but I don't think service can be. So the question becomes like, what is the right amount of fee for service? And I honestly think I like robo advisors for people who just want something simple online, but want a touch of support. Perfect solution for them. People who want a little bit more hand-holding, someone to pick up the phone and call and be proactive with them, I think 1% is a pretty standard rate, honestly.
Okay, sticking with you for a minute, Adam. Give me a downside to your fee models. There must be, nothing's perfect, right? So what do you see as, if somebody out there is looking at maybe kind of shifting their fee model or tweaking it or maybe just changing it, what are some some of the things that they would learn from you as far as, well, watch out for this, as this is a reality you have to deal with your fee models?
So what has been difficult, because again, I come from the commission and AUM world. Now I'm AUM and hourly fixed retainer fees. The fixed income insurance products are very difficult to come by. Back in the day, you used to be able to do that all in-house. The insurance industry is getting better on having those products specifically for fee-only advisors. But that's one thing that can be a challenge sometimes, is communicating the right advice whenever we actually can't implement those types of solutions anymore. So that's the one downside, I would say. But the industry is getting better on having those products specifically designed for my fee-only setup. But currently, that's the biggest con, I would say, in terms of client servicing.
Okay, Alex, do you have a con for your fee model, or is it just perfect?
Yeah, no. I think all fee models have some cons, and hourly, it's hard to implement at the end of the day. And I would say it may be hard for a client to think, hey, I'm calling this advisor and I'm gonna get charged for 15 minutes of my time. That is not how we work as an hourly based financial planning firm. We're hourly based is the main term there. So getting that out of the way with clients and making sure that they understand that they're not gonna get a bill for 10 minutes of our time at the end of the day. It's hard to implement as a financial planning firm, not for the consumer side of things, but on the advisor side of things, making sure that we are when we are on the clock, that we do keep track of our time, which we have gotten down to pretty good science, but there is definitely some issues there. And again, so on the consumer facing side of things, making sure that they understand that it's not the attorney effect, as individuals may state, that they're going to be worried to get a bill for 10 minutes of time. Although being an hourly financial planner now, I do understand why, and I respect way more why attorneys charge for every minute of their time, because they need to. It's how they make their earnings. And then also on the advisor facing side of things, it's hard to implement and making sure that we're keeping track of all of our billable hours and things like that.
Okay, and Cody, advice only. I don't know what the downside could be, but this is one thing I was thinking about recently. If you're not managing client portfolios, do you get the same kind of inquiries that other advisors will be getting when the market's crashing?
That's a great question. I think since I only provide financial planning, right? Financial planning, like kind of if you just kind of unwrap it a little bit, it's really personalized education to help families make their own well-informed decisions. Since I don't do anything for clients, the only thing I do is educate them. And when you build a very collaborative relationship focused on education, I have not received any of those like panic moments. I would say that's one of the, you say like the downfalls or difficulties. Since I only do project-based planning, I don't do any ongoing, those ongoing kind of hand-holding, like especially kind of like through short-term volatility. I teach every client, right, that we're going to think about money in terms of time. We're not going to make long-term investment decisions based on short-term volatility or market updates. And also that, but like I don't have a phone in my business, which is like a huge pro for me, but it could be a con for a client who just loves like to be able to just pick up the phone any moment and get immediate advice. There's no such thing as a financial emergency, right, in my business. I only check email once a day. I don't have a phone. But with that said, the downfalls, I can't be everything to everybody, right? But I mean, I've been very intentional with who and how I'm serving. And I would say one of the benefits to that, and I think within our industry in terms of generosity and transparency, is that forces me to create a network of unpaid referrals to other professionals. So if you don't try to serve everybody, you have to spend a lot more time, right, creating a professional network so that when you do receive a prospective client that's not a right fit for your very specific model, like you have a list of other advisors who are really perfectly aligned with what that client needs. And I believe as a fiduciary, it isn't just like giving investment advice as a fiduciary, but if somebody comes to me who like doesn't align with my model, as a fiduciary, I'm actually giving advice in their best interest by providing an unpaid referral to another professional. And I also do that in terms of estate planning and insurance implementation. I believe that the future of the profession is going to be, there's going to be a lot larger referral networks, but completely unpaid free referrals, no no lead generation between advisors or anything like that, which I think would already not be fee only to begin with. So I think generosity will continue to expand, but that requires me to spend more time creating a professional network, since I've decided that I'm not going to be everything to everybody.
So folks, I hope you caught that. Cody doesn't use a phone or email. So tell me you're a millennial without telling me you're a millennial.
So yeah, my only forms of communication are email and video calls, but I don't do any phone calls. Yeah.
Okay. I want to open it up again to reporters. If any of you out there have a question for our panel, and also Canute, I see you've come on. Do you have a question or comment at this time?
No, I'm going to wait a little bit. Maybe chirp in a little bit towards the end. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to ask you guys now about the evolution of fees. I don't know how long you guys have each been in the business, but from my perspective, I don't know if there's any other industry anywhere in the history of the world that has had so many different variations on fees for essentially the same thing. So do you guys have any sense where, or any thoughts on where you see fees headed? I mean, are we kind of done with commissions eventually? AUM is a dominant kind of force out there right now, but is that kind of going away? You see more movement toward advice only? I'll start with you, Cody.
Yeah, so my answer to that is, so you talked about how there's been so many fee changes doing the same thing, but I believe that's actually not entirely true, because the services have been evolving and separating. Because even now, there's a lot of people who are actually investment managers who say they do financial planning but don't actually do that. I know FPA and CFP are they're looking at ways to even create legal protection for those. But I believe that consumers are realizing that So if I tell somebody I'm a financial advisor, they immediately think that I choose stocks and bonds, right? I think consumers are becoming more aware that that's not actually not what we do, but that's not the only thing we do. When I teach, so of the 25 topic areas that I cover in financial planning, only 5 of them relate to investments. I believe that the service of financial planning is actually it's almost like an entirely different industry. Anytime I talk about financial planning, I get kind of lumped together with insurance and investment. I believe that they're separate industries. I think at some point we'll actually separate even profession-wise. To when you'll ask somebody, hey, are you a financial advisor? Are you an investment manager or a financial planner? There won't be this kind of what do you actually do? So I believe that in the future, I think our compensation models will speak to that. If I tell somebody, if a compensation model is AUM, the only service that communicates to a client is that you manage investments, right? So I believe that the future of it is going to be a separation. I know Adam and I have talked a lot about, I believe that the separation of financial planning to implementation is the best thing for our industry in terms of educating the consumer about how they're important and they're valuable as standalone services. They don't have to be combined.
Jeff, actually, I would like to jump in right now, because we got a message, and I'll take responsibility for this. I got a message from Chip Addis why there isn't a AUM only guy on this panel, and there probably should have been. And so I'm gonna ask Chip or any other AUM leaning advisor to ask a couple questions based on what you've heard from this discussion. So that's what I'd like to do. So Chip, if you're there, go ahead. If somebody else would like to ask a couple of pointed questions from the perspective of an AUM guy, or gal, please go ahead.
Hi, Canute.
Yep.
Hey, it's Chip.
Yep.
So I don't have any specific questions, but it's really more how the operation of an AUM practice works compared to some of these other models. And I'm looking at the chat on the right side of the screen here, and some of the observations, and one of the ones that just came up, I got to admit, not managing assets does sound kind of nice when it comes to vacations and market downturns and all that. But I don't know that it really makes any difference if you're managing assets or not managing assets as it relates to that. I mean, what we have found is by managing assets, we can control a client's financial situation all the way down to the tax return and how the decisions that we make for a client affect the tax return. We're in charge of the implementation, so we've got to make sure that it's right for the client. But if we're not managing those assets, it's very difficult. And we've operated many different ways over the years, but it's very difficult to make sure that the recommendations that you make for a client and what you're suggesting they do actually get done. In most cases, we found years ago that they didn't get done. So we actually think there's a much more coherent, consistent service model to managing assets than to these once-off type of engagements where you really don't develop a long-term relationship for a client. You don't really understand. You're constantly searching for new clients. We don't really have any of that, and you know, we have our 150 group of clients that we serve, and we're with them every step of the way. They're not coming in and out. They know what to expect. They know the services we're going to provide ongoing. They know we're going to look at their issues at the end of the year for tax time. They know when there's market downturns, we're on it. I don't know. I think it's very hard to do that.
Chip, I think you've given sort of a whole buffet for Adam, Alex, and Cody to sort of comment on. So I'll let them comment if they have any comments.
Hey, Chip, I'll start off here and just say from an hourly base side, it is not a one-off on our end, or at least for our business. It's not a one-off that we are actively searching for new clients on an ongoing basis. These clients, when we do a project for them up front, we start from the get-go all the way through implementation. And then we actually don't get paid until the implementation is done by that client. So we see everything through to make sure everything gets implemented. And then when they leave our office that last time, much like a dentist, we have a 6-month follow-up already on the calendar that we will meet with them twice a year, usually at the beginning, in the middle of the year, at the end, in the middle of the year, for tax planning purposes, to make sure that if Roth conversions need to get done, or if they're a business owner, and making sure they're getting the deductions that are needed. But when they leave our office, we already have a meeting scheduled 6 months down the line for them to come in and have that chat again. 6 months goes by pretty quick in a normal year. I feel like 6 months goes by in a couple of days, really. But nevertheless, we have clients, they're already on our books to come back in to make sure that they are it's really just kicking the tires, making sure everything is correct, and making sure that no life changes are happening. If tax loss harvesting needs to get done, it gets done in that meeting. So I just wanted to provide some clarity on those comments as well.
Okay.
Adam or Cody?
Kent, so I agree with you. Those clients desire the scope of service that ongoing investment management provides, and that is a perfect solution for those clients. The question becomes, for clients who don't have a need or desire for that, the younger people, generally speaking, they need something else designed for them, and that typically is going to be, planning only engagements, and then they like clicking the buttons on the tech platforms to place the trades. This is something I've noticed about younger people. So it's really like, what scope of service does each client need? And in your case and my case, because we have retired clients who we are, managing those investments for them, that's what they want and need. So that's a perfect solution for them. It's on the other end for people who maybe don't think they have a need or don't want it. That's when the alternative models really come in my opinion.
Okay, Cody, you're in cleanup there, man.
All right, so a big part of this is that investment management is only one form of implementation, right? I think we can all agree on that. AUM really just suggests that the investments are professionally managed. But I'm looking at my kind of list of financial planning topic areas that a more comprehensive planner would look at, and things like again, charitable giving could go into investment management as well. But pay statement, employee benefits, life insurance, health insurance, long-term care, property casualty, social security analysis, Roth conversion, not the conversions themselves, but the strategies, to convert, the income tax planning. So investments is just one form of implementation. And secondly, like there's a spectrum of delegators and validators. And our industry has only traditionally served delegators who are willing to kind of just say, just do it for me. But especially moving forward with millennials and younger, actually, I've even worked with clients in their 70s who like the advice only model because they still, what I call, have the time, the temperament, and the talent to click the buttons. But you're always going to have people who say, do it for me. There's going to be people who say, I want to do it myself. And then there's going to be other people who say, let's do it together. And I believe that, like, again, like as we serve different people differently, I think that there's room for all of those. And as well as when somebody manages client investments, they can do that. They can provide, even my service can be an ongoing service, advice only. You can still provide ongoing services to a client, but still not charge, I kind of jump back and forth between, the debate, but AUM is not the only way to do an ongoing investment management style practice. I know a lot of people doing flat fee where every client pays the same fee for the same service and process, but it includes investment management. So yeah, I think that there's huge spectrum, and there's a big part of that spectrum that hasn't been served yet. And I think that they're going to be really excited to learn about what financial planning, means for them as they continue to kind of do it differently than how we've been taught.
But Cody, it sounds like you're suggesting that an AUM advisor doesn't provide comprehensive services, that we just provide investment related services. And that's far from the truth. We provide all the services that you just mentioned.
For your practice, yeah.
We provide the same exact services.
Right. Well, so, but Kent, the thing is the way you're compensated is only aligned with how the portfolio moves up and down, which is not, it's not correlated with the service that is being provided is not correlated with the compensation model itself.
That's a good point. You got to give it to them. And I will say this, there are AUM advisors that don't do comprehensive planning.
Oh, yes, I know. I'm aware of that. Yes.
Okay. Hey, I want to throw one more thing in here. This came from somebody in the audience. I was not aware of this, and we got the right mix here to answer this question, I think. It says, are the panelists aware that of the potential tax advantages of AUM over flat fee and hourly billing? Tax advantages for whom? For the advisor, for the client? Are you guys familiar with that? Anybody?
Well, I think what they're saying there is that there's a tax advantage for the compensation to come directly from the accounts, like in retirement accounts. So that can happen with a flat fee investment management model. Of course, it doesn't work for, when you only do financial planning, you cannot, deduct from investments I'm not managing. But yeah, even flat fee can also, the client can receive that tax benefit even from a flat fee.
How can you take fees out of a retirement account, out of a qualified account?
So yeah, when they're as long as the service that's being provided is on that account,
okay,
you can deduct the fees from that account without taxes and penalties and things that would come from taking money out of, like, ordinarily taking money out of a retirement account.
Well, that gets into a whole nother pet peeve of mine of reverse compounding, taking money out of a retirement account. That's why I have such an issue with AUM, that it's taking money out of an account that could be, if you wanted to charge AUM and then said, hey, Cody, I'm going to need, this money from you, write me a check for what I would be pulling out of your account, that would be different. But I don't think AUM advisors want to do that. That's an awkward conversation. Maybe.
Yeah, I would agree. And I just saw the comment come through in regards to flat fees can be deducted without, that is not true, that flat fees can be deducted without taxes and penalties. Fees can be deducted from accounts if they are related to investment management assets and not financial planning. So I'm not sure. I completely agree that financial planning fees are not allowable, but investment management fees are exactly deductible against clients.
Yeah, I was gonna follow up on that. There's a difference between billing out of pocket and deducting fees from the account. Because as soon as you deduct fees from the account, you're billing on AUM, but
Right.
that doesn't necessarily mean the AUM fee is calculated via a percentage. It could be a flat AUM fee. It could be a percentage AUM fee, but the distinction between paying out of pocket and deducting from an account is something that is worth, mentioning, I think.
And I'll add one quick thing there, that there's also this issue that I don't believe that you can do investment management in a client's best interest without doing financial planning, but yet you're not allowed to bill financial planning from the account, only investment management. So I think in the future that will probably, I would think that would change. I would love for just no tax benefit for taking money directly out of a retirement account, whether they're an accumulator or they're distributing in retirement. I think that's just one more possible conflict of interest in a way to convince a client to move under a certain model versus another.
Okay, we're getting toward the top of the hour here. I want to go around the horn to give you each of you final thoughts. And if you don't have any final thoughts, just tell me where you think fees are going. And we're going to include in this round the horn. I was going to include the was it Chip? What's his name? That was just here.
Well, Kent Addis also goes by Chip. So Kent is here.
So if he wants to jump back in and give us some final thoughts, we'll start with you, Cody. All right.
Yeah, so I'll just say, in terms of where fees are going, I think that there's going to be a separation of services. I'm not talking about compensation models for a minute. I'm talking about services. I think that financial planning and implementation will be separate. And, I think moving forward, there'll be a lot more of paying flat fees for each of those services, not related to income or asset level. People with negative net worth but high income should still be able to be provided comprehensive financial planning. I think it'll actually create more diversity inclusion within the industry as well. AUM is typically great for somebody with little assets, but it's not profitable for the advisor. So again, it's just moving forward, there's going to be even more models. I know we get frustrated with the labels around those models, but I think that I think financial planners are going to be much more intentional about how they build their practice to serve a specific type of client, rather than just saying, I'll take anybody who breathes coming in the door. I just think, especially new planners through XY Planning Network, there's a lot of really very defined niches that I think is going to continue to grow. Probably Michael Kitces is really into that, the niche word. But I think that's the future, is just more intentionality and more transparency.
Adam, final thoughts?
So I kind of agree with Cody here. I think the scope of service needs to be clearly laid out. Depending on what the scope of the service is, determines the billing method. I really do think there's going to be a strong push, because we're seeing tons of people leave the commission dual registered, industry, or I guess advisor type, as I like to call it, moving to fee only. I do think that the alternative options, contrary to what historically has been percent of AUM, are just going to get even better and better. But to Cody's point, to follow up, I think scope of service is very important. And then, having a appropriately priced solution based on the scope of service seems to make a lot of sense, in my opinion.
Okay. Alex, bring us home.
Yeah, I have nothing more to add, or I have nothing, in addition to what Cody and Adam have said. I agree with everything that they have mentioned here, but I think fee transparency is going to be a big thing moving forward, making sure that clients and consumers understand what they're paying, why they are paying it, and how they are paying it from their portfolio, whether that's an SEC ruling or a regulatory option moving forward, or if it's just the industry moving that way and allowing individuals to make that, allowing them to make that decision. But I do see fee compression. I do think flat fee wealth management and hourly based financial planning is going to be a bigger component. I know it represents a small portion of the industry as it stands today, but I think as more time goes on, I think the transparency and the way that flat fee and hourly billing is going to become the majority at some point. Not anytime. I don't know if it's going to be during my lifetime, but it maybe, hopefully, it shifts towards that going forward.
Chip, do you want to check in?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is, and I agree with Cody too, in terms of the scope of service, and also to you others who, basically you need to decide who you want to serve and how you want to serve them. I happen to think it's really hard to work with several different kind of compensation models in order to have a really efficient and happy kind of professional life. But there are some who choose to do that. I don't happen to want to do that anymore. And maybe it's because of my age and my white hair. I don't know. But I do think you really need to think about who you're serving and how you want to serve them. And frankly, all these models can work.
Okay. Good stuff. Canute, you have anything to say before we wrap it up? Send everyone back to work?
I just want to thank the speakers. I thank Chip for chirping in, and you rose to the standard of civil debate, discussion, while exchanging different views. So that's all. And so thank you, Jeff, for making it work so well.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
You too.
All right.
Take care.